is exactly 1 week to Christmas, and we would love to wish you a Merry Christmas in advance from here on the Dailies on Equa Television International, where we have been keeping you updated with all the news and current affairs that are dropping on our papers. And we hope that you're actually doing great, and we hope that you had a wonderful weekend as well. I am Sarah Elish Dasham. I'll be doing the program with Rachel Tansey. Good morning,
Morning,
Rachel.
Sarah.
How you doing?
I'm fine.
How is the preparation for Christmas? It's a
Mm,
week from
It's a
today.
week, yeah. I mean, it doesn't feel like it's that close, but it is by the
Yeah.
close, by the corner rather. How is yours going?
Well, thank God. I mean, if there's life, there's hope for whatever was going to happen on that day.
Yes.
All right, we'll be going straight into the paper. Remember, you can be part of the program by joining us live on Facebook and on YouTube, and then you can drop your own comment on some of the stories we will be looking at on the paper this morning. And we'd love to start with the first paper, which is the Guardian newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, federal government firms trade jobs as illegal expatriates take over economy. You can find details on page 6, and then we have a little infograph here saying 13,829 foreigners were issued EQ's permits, while 1,161 businesses permits were given to foreign companies to operate in Nigeria between 2019 to 2022. 13,000 expatriate quota, 1,600 work permits issued in 3 years. Expatriates issued Nigerian diplomatic passports, and then we have 150,000 expatriates in Nigeria coming from the Minister of Interior. More details can be found on page 6. Pro-Wike lawmakers re-strategize to ousted Fubara, vow to reclaim rivers. Kano residents won't accept injustice, Deputy Governor warns. You can find details on page 3. Serap sues INEC for failing to prosecute electoral offenders in Bayelsa, Kogi, and Imo State. Profligate governors, political class, popularizing citizens. You can find more details on page 2. NCDC confirms outbreak of dengue fever in Sokoto State. More details can be found on page 30, and we can take this serious as we've had in the past. We had that of diphtheria starting little and then spreading, and now we are having dengue fever in Sokoto State. More details can be found on page 30, and that's all the news on the Guardian newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. Punch wins the NMMA Newspaper Editor of the Year, cliches 9 others. You can find more detail of that story in the paper. And the big story here says Christmas shoppers condemn Naira scarcity. ATMs dry up with the rider poultry dealers, local stores in season cash, consumers buy Naira note from petty traders. And we are having customers lament hardship, hoarding worsens. CBN expect banks to disburse more cash. You can find more detail of that story in the paper. And we're having electricity subsidy gobs 379 billion naira. Consumers pay 783 billion naira. You can find more detail of that on page 22. And we're having Man Airlines Dangote in talks over diesel and jet A1. Afenifere worries over rising armed robbers in the southeast. You can find detail on page 9. NDIDA sees convicted Lagos Baron Mansion, NERP's grandma. You can find detail of the story in the paper. I knew long ago Gani would become son. This is coming from Pastor Adeboye. You can find detail of that on page 8. 3 died, 7 injured in Lagos Ibadan Expressway crash. We hope that the Federal Road Safety, together with the government of this both state, will do something about the number of crashes we keep having on that road, especially now that it's the festive season. A lot of drivers will be driving very rough. So we hope this is the time where we should see more road safety officials on the road to be able to caution drivers on how they drive. I mean, imagine when it's not even the festive season, we kept recording accidents on the same expressway. Now that it's festive season, we know a lot of drivers will try to go fast, come back, get more, passengers, and then come back and all of that. And it's really sad when a lot of people are hoping. We're seeing that 3 died and 7 injured. So I'm hoping to see that both the government of Lagos State together with that of Oyo will come together and see what can they do, especially concerning that expressway. They have taken quite a number of lives, so that we will have I mean, to some extent, zero or no, accident on that road again. So our fingers are crossed on that.
Yes, Sele, and I believe that it's also important for you to use safe transport system, no matter how expensive it might be. Just go for the best at this season. The reason is because most of these transport companies that are kind of safe, and we always see them as more expensive, have speed limits. Like they have those regulations by the company than these roadside drivers that are more concerned about how much they make than the safety of their travel, and then they go far. Is important at this very crucial hour, because just as you said, a lot of drivers will be more money minded than safety. Then just go for companies that you know are not out for
Just a
the
profit
speed
that they will
exactly,
make.
but are more concerned about your safety. And then secondly, if you should be your road safety officer. Don't Road safety officers will not be on the road to tell your drivers to reduce their speed. When you are in a car and you see that the driver is being aggressive, overtaking wrongly, misbehaving, be your own road safety officer and then tell the driver to not speed because you're not in the rush. Be on the neck of your driver because your life is important. For him, it is money. For you, it's your life. Either way, if anything bad should happen, he doesn't make that money, you don't reach your destination. So be that road safety officer on the road. Before you enter a car, look at the tires, do that job for yourself. I mean, is it worn out? Ask the driver. I've been in those situations that I didn't trust the tire and I told the driver, I don't trust your tire. Do your own inspection. The little you can do, ask important questions and then caution the driver. And then in the end, we hope that everybody will reach their destination safe. But then do your own part.
I mean, I've been in a situation, Rachel, where even after you talk to this driver, they tend to be in adamant
They
about
are
whatever you're
stubborn,
saying.
Celia.
Very, very stubborn, especially
Yes,
time like this. And then we know that transport fare is even double now
it
because of
is.
this festive season. So, I mean, even from the park, because most times you pay before your car will even take off if you are taking it from the park. So I'm hoping, just like you said, do the little that you can do. I mean, check, be sure that the driver is sound psychologically before you guys will take off. Because I've been in a situation where we had to talk about the driver and then subsequently they had to change him because it says he was a little bit tipsy. So you could imagine if we are taking
Yeah.
that long journey with such a driver, eventually, I mean, everybody would die because of the carelessness of
Yeah.
one person. And then lastly on the paper, we have US lawmakers wants Nigeria on concern list over blaspheming killings. You can find detail of that story in the paper. And that's all on the Punch newspaper.
On the Matrix newspaper, don't register business name without plan to start operation, coming from CAC. And on the English Premier League, Arsenal reclaim lead as Liverpool, Man United settle for draw. Kano Guba election, APC denies trying to influence Supreme Court's judgment, says NNPP circulating fake rumors. You can find details on page 3. The big story on the paper, Wike Fubara face off continues. Pro-Wike lawmakers reject 2024 budget. Clear your name by intervening now, Yoruba group tells Tinubu. Rivers Labour Party Guba candidate Itubu sues for peace. Acting Governor Ayedatiwa didn't freeze Ondo local government accounts coming from the state government. NLC debunks report of nationwide strike warning. Corporate begging rises in Abuja as economy bites harder. Tension in Adamawa as appeal court rules infantry Binani case today. You can start with the details on the front page. Tinubu reiterates administration's commitment to advancing 4D foreign policies. This is still on the table. You can start with the details on the front page and continue inside the paper, and that's all the news on the Matrix newspaper.
And on Nigerian News Direct, World Bank financed Nigeria's renewable energy sector with $750 million. With the writer here says 17.5 million Nigerians to get solar and power grids, as electricity subsidy gulped 204.5 billion naira in the third quarter of 2023. And on the inflation rate, LCCI profiled policy mix to ensure naira stability. 15,000 Lagos traders get 50,000 naira cash support as Sanwo-Olu launches market palliative scheme. NNPC Limited bags award for excellence in transparency and innovation. You can find that story on page 12. Enhanced collaboration with the judiciary led to speedy resolution of dividend payment of closed bank. This is coming from the NDIC. And here we have Tinubu, Nidcom hails Ojoma on appointment as Cambridge University College president. You can find detail of that story in the paper. We have two pictures story. One, we can see where the NNPCL is actually collecting the award. We can also see the president of trade union, Festus Osifo, together with other stakeholders down. And the top paper here, we can see the Minister of Finance, and also we can see Governor Dibo of Ogun State. You can find more detail of that story inside the paper, and that's all on Nigerian News Direct.
On Daily Independent, Nigeria can't move forward by suppressing Indibo, coming from Abari Bay. CUPP raises the alarm over plot to validate pro-Wike lawmakers, pave way for Governor Fubara's impeachment. The big story: federal government should prioritize taming inflation, not $1 trillion economy. Analysts label $1 trillion economic target as unrealistic, say decline in inflation will lead to increase in naira value, and I believe we couldn't agree less to this. Serap sue INEC over failure to prosecute electoral offenders in Bayelsa, Kogi, Imo, and I mean not only there, for both the general polls and the ones that took place in March, that is for other states. You can find details on page 29. Afenifere suggests fresh ways of checking rising insecurity. 2024 budget surpassed 18.2 trillion naira target, Senate tells revenue generating agencies. Pro-Wike Rivers Assembly Speaker rejects governor's assent to 2024 budget. Details can be found on page 6. 15,000 Lagos traders get 50,000 naira cash support at Sanwo-Olu launches market palliative scheme. Still on Daily Independent, owners or disused aircraft there, Keyamo defy 90-day order. The writer under the story: over 60 abandoned aircraft still litter nation's airports, called orders restraining federal government from relocating them. This is the source. You can find details of this story on page 28. 42,000 failed bank depositors get 1.7 billion naira. This is from NDIC. Details can be found on page 6, and that's all news on Daily Independent newspaper.
On the Voice of Liberty, the first story here I'll be taking is on insecurity. IGP summon all DIGs, AIGs, CPs, and others. You can look up that story inside the paper. Unilever 4 orders multinational companies leaving Nigeria. We've seen that throughout last week. And coming from Castina, bandits kill 4 farmers, abduct 8 others. Detail in the paper. And from Kaduna State, $600 million death profile spark crisis between Governor Uba Sani and El-Rufai. A crisis has emerged between the former governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, and his political godson, Sani, following the discovery that the state was hugely indebted to a whooping sum of $600 million foreign debts. You can find more detail of that, and one would like to ask, why are we having former governors having issues with their godsons that they actually, brought up? Well, you can look up that story inside the paper. And on drug price hike, we have APC chief tie appeal for Tinubu's urgent intervention, and I think it's really, really needed at a time where, the prices of drugs is quite outrageous. I really think the president should come in. An alleged DPO skidding probe Wike, others over diversion of I think that's story, probe Wike and others over diversion of $300, 9 billion naira. Timi Frank urges the police and DSS. And on $3 billion yearly saving, Argentina news president reduces government costs by 50%, sells a national jet. And you begin to ask questions, Rachel. Here we're having other countries that are more developed, trying to save more money, more developed than we are. And here we're seeing that the new president has reduced governance, definitely, cars by 50%, and
Mm-hmm.
is even selling the
Yes.
national jets.
Mm.
Just so they will be able to save about $3 billion yearly. And I think this is not even the first country I'm hearing. I mean, we've had other
We've had
African
up, yes,
countries
Ellen.
doing that as well. Why? Because I mean, there is a need for renovation in the country. There is a need for cleaning. There is a need to save. I mean, a time where because when we're talking about inflation, it's not just in
Yes, it's
Nigeria.
a global economic
Globally, there
crisis.
is
Yeah.
a economic meltdown. So there is a need for a lot of people to cut down their cost of spending. But we're seeing that
No,
Nigeria that is
ours
still
is
crowing. We're
absolutely
not doing that. I
different,
mean, so
Sele.
Rachel, I'm hoping that we'll take a lead from this country.
I mean, I'm just hoping we do, because whether we like it or not, Sele, as it is now, our economy is crashing. I just hope that Nigerians are not in denial of that reality. Why? We're seeing APC chieftain appealing to President Tinubu to intervene concerning dog prices hike. How is the president going to intervene? That is the question. Because everything is being subsidized, and that's the way the government is. But by the time you find out that even drugs are going, because how will the president, the question is he going to call those companies and say,
That's
please
gone to please come back.
reduce the yes, come back, or please reduce the prices of your, no, it's not going to work like that. There are things that aid in that, and as it is now, we do not have. The number one reason is our currency, Sele. That is why we are having drug prices going high. Is our currency, and as long as it keeps devaluing, is inflation, is every factor, is the fact that we're having companies leaving, is the fact that those countries also are facing inflation. So it means production is also going high for them in that country, and therefore they are bringing it to us here, and there's devaluation of our currency. And then we don't want to start seeing everything being subsidized, because it means if we are saving on this other side, we are spending on this side, we are in a lot of trouble when we look at our economy left, right, center. And I just hope, and I am trusting God that Tinubu has the capacity to help Nigeria's economy, because when you see what countries are doing, Argentina is a top country when it comes to global economy, and their GDP per capita is nothing, it's at the top. Compared Nigeria, we are at the bottom. I mean, we don't even I don't even want to mention what our GDP per capita rate is. And then you see a country that shouldn't even be bothering about certain things are taking drastic measures to be able to save money and invest into other things in the economy, because there is economic crisis all over the globe, and then we are doing what is the opposite of what, and then you just wonder, where are we heading to? But we have to wait for 2024 to see if something different will be of our economy. But as it is now, we are going down the slope, and we are yet to reach the bottom. But I just hope that before we get there, we start finding ourselves up again.
You know, Rachel, when you said, I mean, let's look at what 2024 is. I mean, I can't help but remember a meme I saw where they said, I mean, there are certain situations where you just say, like, this problem is for 2024, this problem is for 2024. But how would the 2024 be able to carry all of these problems we're pushing into? Because, Rachel, we're having APC chieftain talking about the issue of drugs. I think, just like you said, the president has no power to actually tell these companies to come back, except we are planning to do something about our currency. But then I think the president has the capacity to empower the people that can start our local production here. I mean, we have other local pharmaceuticals that are working around. So what is the president hoping to do to when it comes to all of these foreign drugs? I mean, by now we're supposed to know how to do all of these things. I mean, because I believe that I remember you and I talking about herbs, and then we're like, I mean, they should go through all of the research, be sure the tests are working out well, and then let's be sure that this is working. I mean, what is the use of all this what do we call them, that we have all these places where we produce, like the likes that we have in Vom here? I think
Our research
institute.
NVR,
Yes. What are the use of all those research institutes that we have? And it's not just here in Plateau State we have them in other parts. So we should make good use of this research institute. I think that is the only way we'll be able to come up with something that can help Nigerians. I know it might not just be tomorrow, but I mean, if we're ready to start the work today, Rachel, I'm hoping, and I know if we're ready to put the work before the mid 2024, we should have things working out. It's really we are serious about it, Richard. Because I have to say we are really, because the indications we're having here that we are not serious about anything.
Yeah.
When we don't have our politicians, we don't have our leaders even patronizing things here. I mean, why do you think that we even be concerned about making sure that all our research institutes are working and are doing well? So our fingers to be crossed. We are hoping that
Yeah.
something will come up from there. And the last story here, we have Nigeria lights Africa's tallest Christmas tree in Abuja. And that's all on the Voice of Liberty.
On New Telegraph newspaper, 13% derivation, oil producing states earning up 10.61% to 595.78 billion naira. Global oil demand will drop to 101.7 million barrels per day in the last quarter of 2023. This is a report. You can find details on page 8. Prison congestion, lawyers push for non-custodial sentencing. Convicted baron loses VGC mansion and SUV. NDLEA arrests grandma for drugs in Lagos. Serap sues INEC for failure to prosecute electoral offenders in Imo, Kogi, and Bayelsa. Government has made Nigerians orphans, coming from Adebayo. If you want to read details of his statement, you can find them on page 27 and 29 of New Telegraph newspaper. The big story on the paper, aviation. Federal government moves 50% fare subsidy. Minister, airline operators hold strategic meeting. Travelers to fill forms. Information will be sent to CBN for 50% ticket price refund. More details can be found on page 3. Consumers paid 267.6 billion naira for electricity in the third quarter of 2023, coming from NERC, says federal government incurred 204 billion naira in subsidies. Sanwo-Olu can't demolish people's property maliciously, coming from Oba of Lagos. Fake news, no nationwide strike, says NLC. 26 defected lawmakers sit. Court stops INEC from conducting fresh election in Rivers. CUPP alleges secret suit to return pro-Wike lawmakers. Cambridge announces Nigerian professor as 7th president. More details can be found on page 2, and we can say congratulations to Ichebu. At the downside of the paper, there is a study that says poor diet quality during adolescence tied to serious health risks. So for our parents having our children still developing at the adolescent age, please take their diet seriously, as it means health risks in the future. More details can be found on page 7, and that's all news on New Telegraph newspaper.
On the First News newspaper, fresh troubles for Wike as Timmy Frank demands probe over Rivers DPO killing, $300 million and 9 billion naira theft. You can find detail in the paper. Still, Rivers crisis, Wike talks tough. One I won't accept to be dragged down. Takes a jab at Fubara. Says politicians must respect party rules, as pro-Wike lawmakers reject governor's 800 billion naira 2024 budget. You can find more detail of that, and I wonder why the name of the former governor is being dragged and all of these things. I mean, Nigerians are becoming tired of this whole issue in River State, and a lot of people are hoping they will be able to resolve. If we're saying that the previous paper here is saying that, I mean, CUPP alleged secret suit to return pro-Wike lawmaker. We remember last week the court said that for the meantime they should be away from the assembly complex, and then they shouldn't be there. But we heard that they had their own hearing in another, they had their own plenary in another place, and then right now they are moving for the fact that, you know what, we're not in agreement to what the press or the governor rather has presented as the 2024 budget. But questions, I mean, listening to various angles of this entire story, a lot of people are feeling that what is happening in River State is not right. Because I mean, if only the right thing has been done, this wouldn't have escalated to where it is presently. Remember one of the defected members saying the fact that the party did not come, that's talking about PDP, did not say anything when they were having the rift in the house and all of that. And right now we are having about 2 people parading themselves as speakers of the River State. And you begin to ask questions, where is that done? Ideally, we're supposed to have one, and they're saying the present speaker was even on suspension, so he cannot actually stand or parade himself. But the court have said he is the speaker, so we're expecting that. I mean, the court will be respected. Now you see where I'm saying, Rachel, it seems as if in one arm of the government is not being respected well, because it's obvious. I mean, the judiciary is not being taken serious in this matter, and that is why the legislative feel they can do whatever they want to do, despite what the court is saying. So I do not know why the name of the former governor keep coming up, but we've said this and we'll keep saying it's the fact that, I mean, this is a clear indication of the fact that, you know what, you stay in your jurisdiction and let these people do whatever they want to do. Because from the way things are moving, he was your godson, so why frustrate whatever he's trying to do? And of course, even if we're going to look at it, I mean, logically, it wasn't right for the governor to present the budget to just 4 members out of 30 something, even though according to reports coming, there are just 25 actually that defected, because one of the members traveled abroad. So until she is back, before she will state whether she has actually defected or not, because what the house is having is not a defection letter, so it should be 25, not 20. But regardless of what it is presently here, Rachel, I'm just hoping that Wike will go down to River State. They should resolve whatever they want. This should not be part of the problem that should be handed over to 2024. Let this thing be trash in 2023. Finish it this year, so that we can have, I mean, Rivers people enjoying good governance rather than the back and forth. Because as it is presently, if we're having these 25 members not agreeing to the budget, that is to say there's no budget for the state. So we hope more things will be done to resolve this issue before it gets out of hand eventually.
I mean, Stella, obviously they will not accept the budget because their activity shows we want to frustrate the governor, and it's really sad. And there's nothing much that somebody wouldn't say without saying that whatever is happening in the rivers is very uncalled for. It shouldn't even be in the first place, and it's sad, very very sad, that we allow certain things to thrive in our system, that we allow for certain things to happen, to linger for long, to gain value, to gain weight, to even become an issue in the first place, because in the end it's all about growth, and this doesn't speak growth in any way. And we will not stop saying, because Wike should face where he's supposed to be, and these lawmakers should do the right thing and should do the needful. You can't be in a party, refuse to solve a problem, remove yourself from the party, and then start pointing at their excesses. It's pointing back at you. Because regardless of what you say, PDP did not, no, you were there. You didn't do anything when you were there. You were in the party. You didn't do anything when you were there, and now you left. So it means you were the problem there, obviously. But you now feel you can point your hands back to the party and say certain things were not put in place. But when you were there, what did you do about those things that were the problem? But now that you've left the party, you feel you can talk about the wrongs of the party, when obviously you were the part of the problem and all of that. So when you see people that I believe should be very intelligent and leaders, you know, that we believe should be intellectuals on every level, championing one cause, good causes of course, and you see them acting this way, then you wonder, when are we going to start getting leadership right? Because it keeps showing us one thing, Sele, that democracy is not the problem. We just have people problem, we have leader problem, we have mindset issues, we have attitude problems. We just have one thing or the other that won't just let governance thrive on so many levels. And let's see what happens concerning River State, because yes, 4 lawmakers can't decide on the budget. However, these 25 should not also frustrate it, because either way things have to move. If you're rejecting it, it's like you're putting Rivers on a standstill. So even if you are not right, what is expected is not for you to reject but scrutinize. That is the point. He has submitted the budget. We're seeing the same at the national level. He has submitted the budget. You give your scrutiny concerning it. You go through it. You add or you reduce. However, that's the process. But don't just reject it. You are supposed to go through it. That is the process. But when you reject it, then it shows the fact that, okay, what are you even trying to achieve in the first place? And it just shows the many lapses that we have. So I just hope that things eventually turn out for the better in Rivers. I mean, it will go. Wike will come and go. Rivers will be there for ages. The same way Nigeria is not going anywhere. Every leader will come and go, and eventually this will die off too.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the fact that it's even one of our oil producing states, I mean, it has gained not only national attention but even international attention, and we are hoping that they resolve it. Even though a lot of people are frowning at the fact that less than 24 hours after presenting the budget, he has signed it already.
Of course,
that is a problem already
Yes.
on its own as well, because he didn't give time for the lawmakers to have a proper look at and be sure that whether applications were being given rightly. But regardless, we hope that our leaders will not allow their personal problems to affect governance in their various states. Still on the First News newspaper, we have 22,000 default microfinance mortgage banks. Depositors get 1.7 billion naira refund coming from the NDIC. Fitiri versus Binani. Tension grips Adamawa as appeal court rolls today. You can find detail of that story inside the paper. No plan to influence Supreme Court judgment. This is coming from Kanu APC. Why I didn't stop Pastor Gani from becoming son of Bomosho. You can find detail of that inside the paper. NDLEA recovers 1.5 million. South African born tramadol pills at Lagos airport. You can find more inside the paper. Again, 4 children stolen in Umahi. This is really a sad story. You can find more story of that inside the paper. MPA boss fake electronic call-up syndicate at the MPS Brigade. You can find more of that in the paper. Concern as Nigeria record over 200,000 deaths annually from food poisoning. Last week we saw what happened also. During some kids were actually sick because of food poisoning. You can look up that story inside the paper. Ayeda Tiwa didn't freeze local government accounts. Akiro Dodu's protocol chief not suspended. This is coming from Ondo government. And also we are having scavenger run smoke, snatches inspector raffle, kills one, injure many. You can find more detail of that story inside the paper. And that's all on the First News newspaper. But before we continue further with other paper analysis, we would love to take a break. We have said quite enough. We would love to hear what your own inputs are concerning any of the story that is of interest to you. So please stay tuned with us. We'll be right back. Thanks for staying tuned. It's still the dailies. We have been looking at a number of stories on the paper, and at this moment we would love to hear what your own views are concerning any of the story that we have looked at on the paper. The number to call is displayed on your screen. Please do remember to turn down the volume of your TV set when you call us so we can hear you clearly. And then you can also drop your views on Facebook and also on YouTube, and then we'll also take those ones as well. I still have Rachel with me in the studio. Thanks, Rachel.
You're welcome, Fele.
All right, let's take a look at the next paper, which is the Nation newspaper.
On the Nation newspaper, death in the water, fears anguish over boreholes. We have business fallout that says inflation slowdowns likely from next month. Investors target shares of big banks and then Wema Bank to raise 40 billion naira. You can find details from pages 15 to 18. Why I didn't stop sound of Obomoso from title by Adeboye. Nigerian is President Cambridge Varsity College. The nation wins highest honors at NMMA. You can find the story on page 4. NAFDAC moves against sales of measured milk cereals in open markets. You can find more details on page 30. I believe that they are not regulated, and then it's important if this is coming to us from NAFDAC. I know a lot of us will believe it's cheaper. Of course it is compared to the branded ones and the ones we find in the supermarket and all of that, but they are not regulated, and we do know that anything that is not regulated, of course we don't know the preservatives that is being used, we don't know the chemicals that is being used for preservatives, because that is not also safe, and what is the standard. So regardless of the open one, just make sure it's branded, NAFDAC approved and all of that. I know things are hard and we are like desperately need for how to cut down the cost of the things we consume, but honestly, when it comes to the food we eat, anything that you know can be harmful to you, I believe we shouldn't take that likely in any way when it comes to food. And now that NAFDAC is bringing it to the limelight, we should take it seriously. You can find details on page 30.
All right, let's take this call. Good morning.
How are you today?
Fine, thank you, sir.
Honestly speaking, Sele and Rachel, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Yes, Shaman calling from Kaduna.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Shamal.
Yes, I want to resonate on just a topic. The issue of the governor of Kaduna State, Obasani, and the past governor. What everybody did in Kaduna State was unacceptable in southern Kaduna. Everybody picked loan, and that loan was centered on just two local governments on development. So now the southern Kaduna people are at the receiving end of the loan. If a governor picks a loan, was he not supposed to be given to all the people of the state? But he centered his development just on 2 or 3 local governments. Southern Kaduna did not enjoy anything from that side. Rather, we suffered insecurity and hardship. We suffered hatred and betrayal. So I appreciate what Obasani is doing now. Let Obasani not leave any stone unturned by digging out to know really what Obasani did with the money the loan is collected. Because you cannot just go scot-free. That people are suffering. The governor don't have, the present governor Obasani don't have what to work with. Don't have the resources to work for the state. So every fight should come and explain to the Kaduna State, where did he keep our money? Where is the money that is collected? The loan is collected. We can't take it like a team. Because you should know that nemesis must catch up with somebody. And certainly, catching with him. He brought Obasani and King of Kuro. He used to be the governor of Kaduna State. There's no reaction. They truncated their way. And Obasani is the governor of Kaduna State. Then one Obasani to pick out what they did with the money. Because Southern Kaduna believe in loan. Good morning, my sisters. You have a blessed day.
All right, thank you, Shama, for your contribution on that story.
Yes. Still on the Nation newspaper, the big story, Lalong resigns from FEC. Former Labor and Employment Minister opts to take Plateau South Senate seat. And we have a statement. President Tinubu has accepted Minister of Labor and Employment Simon Lalong resignation from the cabinet. His valedictory will hold at the next FEC meeting. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 4. Rivers Assembly 27, our defection constitutional. Sun set to standardize CNG buses. And then we have dignitaries greet Buhari at 81. Details can be found on page 6. And then we have a picture story where we can see Governor Sanwo-Olu, Lagos inaugurates agro-produce hub. And that's all the news on the Nation newspaper.
On Dailies newspaper, Ohaneze president alleges conspiracy against Igbo. You can find detail on page 8. The big story here saying Naira scarcity, BDCs, SMEs and others grown as expert queries the CBN. Crisis ending soon, says the Apex Bank. You can find detail of that on page 2. Off-cycle election, Serap sue INEC over failure to prosecute electoral offenders in Bayelsa, Kogi and Imo. Also, we have convicted drug baron loses VGC mansion SUV as NDLEA arrests grandma for drugs in Lagos. Tinubu hails appointment of Professor Uchebu as London Varsity president. And we have NBA boss fake electronic call-up syndicate at Lagos port. Nigerians and others die as 61 migrants down off Libya coast. You can find more of that on page 27. And on Rivers, G27 leaders reject passage of budget, accuses lawmakers loyal to Fubara of contravening laws. Purported orders stop him. Sack of 25 lawmakers goes viral. CUPP alleges fresh plot to impeach the governor. You can find detail of that on page 6. And NLC dismisses notice of nationwide strike. We've seen it in quite a number of papers. You can find that on page 28. And we have a picture story, personnel of River State Police Command training on arms handling amidst the current political crisis in the state. And that happened actually during the weekend. And that's all on Daily Sun newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, River State PDP moves to end Fubara-Wike feud. CUPP alleges plot to validate defections of 25 assembly members. Don't pull the ladder you use in climbing, Wike warns. Tribune wins best in editorial writing at NMMA among top in 3 other categories. LG accounts no frozen. Chief of protocol not suspended, although government denies report. For 15,000 Lagos traders to get 750 million naira at Sanwo-Olu launches market money. Abata at Town Lusa, the road will be completed in 9 months. This is coming from Abiodun. You can find details on page 5. The big story on the paper, Nigeria losing billions of revenue to free trade zone operators coming from customs. There is no credible opposition in Nigeria, APC National Secretary is making that statement. NETI tracks over $20 billion recoverable revenues, recovers $3 billion. NPA uncovers fake seaport e-call-up syndicate at NPS Brigade. You can find more details on page 25. And on inflation, federal government seeks repatriation of proceeds from oil and gas to bring stability to foreign exchange pricing regime. Convicted drug baron loses VGC mansion SUV as NDLEA arrests grandma for drugs in Lagos. And the writer under the story says recovers South African-born 1.5 million tramadol pills at Lagos airport. 10 years post-privatization, Nigeria's unreliable power grid pushes big customers away, coming from stakeholders. So in a lot of ways, privatization haven't solved our problems yet, and I just hope that before the government reconsiders privatization for certain sectors, they should also look into the power sector and see how it have thrived so far in 10 years. You can find details on page 7. Don't abuse your IPPIS exemption, federal government tells VCs and others. More details on page 5, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On this day newspaper, power sector stakeholders says changing ownership of discos won't solve Nigerians' electricity problem. Urge the NERC to implement cost-reflective tariff structure. Oppose federal government on Naira-dominated gas sales. You can find detail of that inside the paper. Education is the greatest weapon in fight against terrorism, says Mrs. Tinubu. You can find detail inside the paper. At Ministry Organized Trade Dialogue, participant insists Nigeria not faithful to agreement reached with foreign investors. Kick against Nigeria signing economic partnership agreement with EU. You can find detail of that story inside the paper. Purported court orders surface ahead of ruling, more rules for judiciary. CUPP confirms development. Center uncovers plot to halt by-elections. Wike differs Fubara's men return to state. Frank wants Rivers DPO's dead probe. You can see that story on page 5. War against judiciary, unwarranted, reckless senior lawyers caution. You can find that on page 36. And we have a picture story, this day alumni dinner. You can find more detail of that story inside the paper. And that's all on this day newspaper.
On Vanguard newspaper, clerk to CJN Ariola tackle corruption malpractices in judiciary. 61 migrants, mostly Nigerians, Gambians, die in Libyan shipwreck. This is coming from the UN agency. Bayelsa Kogi Imo Paul Serap wants INEC to prosecute electoral offenders. The big story, Rivers Assembly crisis. RVSG PDP G27 lawmakers disagree over seats. You can find details inside the paper. War against judiciary enough is enough, coming from the senior advocates of Nigeria. You can find more details on page 25. Electricity generation drops by 4% in 3 months. How MDA's corporations fail to insure 80% federal government assets. More details can be found on page 19. And on Kano Guba, no plan to influence Supreme Court judgment, a statement from APC. And then we have a column by Awila Kemfa on page 17, and sports on page 37 saying Auburn can't play for Nigeria. And then we have a picture story, Thanksgiving service for the news town of Obomoso, and that's all the news on Vanguard newspaper.
On the leadership newspaper, we start with the international story, Gaza war, Israel Palestine commit to peaceful coexistence. You can find that story on page 4. Also, we are having on fact check the JEGA call for restructuring of Nigeria. That's a question. Also, we are having Cambridge announces Ijoma Ojebu as president. You can find more of that story on page 2. And on fintech, Nigerians lose 51 billion naira to cyber criminals. You can start reading the story on the front page and continue on page 7. Coming from Kano State to deal to compromise court judgment. No deal to compromise court judgment. This is coming from the APC. And on insecurity concern, as Safe School initiative gets zero budget. UN, World Bank, EU express worry Nigeria mom. 168 Zamfara schools remain short. This is coming from civil societies. You can find detail of that on page 4. Also, we have indigenous oil producers seek review of the PIA. You can find that on page 19. Lassa fever killed 200 in 2023, says the Disease Control Center. And still on River State, APC formally received 25 pro-Wike lawmakers. You can find more detail of that story inside the paper. We're still having the police during their training in River State as a picture story on the front page of the paper. And that's all on leadership newspaper.
On Blueprint newspaper, drug baron Ekenwa loses VGC mansion jeep to federal government. Federal government, state, local government share 1.78 trillion in November allocation. Government officials living in luxury amid economic instability, coming from Action Aid. Surpass 18.3 trillion naira targeted revenue, Senate tax agencies. This is still on the 2024 budget. Rivers imbroglio, we have Ameule led 27 lawmakers there Fubara as crisis deepens. Says we don't PDP because Tinubu is doing well. Call Wike to order, group urges president. Come clean on FCT Minister Governor Field Lukman tells APC. You can find details on page 6. Terrorists kill 4 abducts caused in Katsina Zamfara attacks. Arrest wave of kidnapping in Nigeria, Fenifere tells federal government. SCV framework enhances payment of closed banks depositors, coming from the NDIC. That's all the news on Blueprint newspaper.
All right, let's look at the National Economy newspaper. Let's look at business. Unemployment spur 208.86 billion naira pension account withdrawals in the second quarter. No clues yet as cooking gas price escalates. You can find that on page 19. We have currency buying, selling, inflation rate for last year and this year, and then some of the commodity prices for Brent, gold, silver, and gas. You can look up that story more inside the paper. Nigeria may face 2024 budget hurdle amid weaker currency. You can find more detail of what that entails with the proposal of the budget. Economic toil of Nigerian deteriorating roots. You can find more of that story on page 12, and that's all on National Economy newspaper.
On the Abuja Inquirer, coming from World Bank, inflation slow growth pushed 24 million Nigerians below poverty. The big story, national priority budget, how FCT was denied funds for critical projects in 2023. Nigerian-born Professor Ejoma named Cambridge University president. And that's all the news on the Abuja Inquirer.
On Business Day newspaper, insider abuse hoarding leaves banks with cash shortage. You can find up that story inside the paper. Hodls dog federal government plan to sell 40% shares in Discourse. And then we have other stories here. Christmas jollof more expensive. Inflation pinches wallet. And then Nigerians' path to peace and development. You can read up that story inside the paper. And we have other smaller stories, figure picture story as well on the front page of the paper. And that's all on Business Day newspaper.
On Punch Sports Extra, double impact. Boniface calls assist in Leverkusen win. And then we have 10-man Red Devils hold Reds at Anfield. So we have a draw with Liverpool and Man United. Cameroon's Ebomo ruled out CAF once against illegal AFCON streaming. We have 26 days to go. Osimhen Umar Zaidu no UCL fools today. Plateau's Hillary bags hat-trick in Bielsa's route. Ancelotti not in rush for new Madrid deal. Tony anticipates Arsenal transfer. The big story on the paper, Murphy AFCON worry. Nice striker emerges as major doubt for Ivory Coast after picking up a hamstring injury. Gunners go top after downing Seagulls. And then at the downside of the paper, we have Adego K. Otusanya begin Okoye Thomas Cup title. And on government boxing, we have Eward Aziz in War of Words. And that's all the news on Punch Sports Extra.
Well, that's how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you, Rachel, for doing
You're
this
welcome,
with me.
Selen.
Thank you to Mr. Shama for coordinating the program. Thank you to all our viewers and supporters as well. Until we come tomorrow, do have a blessed day ahead.